Hi and welcome. In this video today I will talk about underwater photography and my experiences with it. I have different systems here on my table and I will talk about the advantages and maybe disadvantages of the different systems.
My name is Benjamin Jaworski, photographer and adventurer. 10 years ago, I started to teach myself photography. Today, I travel the world as a professional photographer and filmmaker. Learn from my experiences, mistakes and tips and join me on my photography adventures.
I started underwater photography maybe 3 years ago. It is kind of a hobby. Most of the times I do landscapes. I'm a professional travel photographer and I travel a lot during my year. And most of the times I'm in beautiful places with beautiful landscapes, and most of the times there is as well some wildlife in the water, and I wanted to add it on my list what I can do in destinations. So I started underwater photography. And the first thing I did, most of the people do, is I started with a GoPro and an underwater housing, which is most of the times with it, I think. With mine it was. And as well I have a Sony Action Cam for underwater, a 4K camera with a special underwater front, and that works as well. And that's what I also use now. But you have a big disadvantage with it. It's a very wide angle lens, it's a fisheye effect. You have to get very close to things. It's good for a selfie and just good to have it, to attach it, but it does not have the quality like with a real camera. It has a small sensor, can't change lenses. So it's fun to just take it with you when you are the first time underwater, but when you're looking for better quality, better images, you need to take your real camera underwater. And I show you which different systems I have here. Everything started with this thing here. It's a Eva Marina housing, aqua housing it's called. It's a flexible bag. You can call it plastic bag. And that's what it actually is, but it's more than just a plastic bag. I used it in almost 5 or 6 countries, I would say. Traveled all over the world with it, and it's still working. And I had it in salt water, in sweet water, everywhere. I was there in Canada with salmons in a river and photographed them in the river while floating there. I had it in Australia. This picture was actually taken with that housing, so not a big deal. I have a whole episode. It's actually on this channel as well. Watch the whole episode. You see how this picture was taken. It's a quite funny story how I took this image with that housing. So it's not that expensive, something around 200 or 300 euro, which might be or might sound expensive for just a bag of plastic, but when you put your expensive camera inside, you should trust that thing. And I would either pay 200 or 300 euro than investing in some Chinese plastic bag from Amazon, which costs something like 50 bucks or something. They might work as well, but this thing is quality from Germany. No, it actually is. And it's working pretty good, and I use it now for 3 years. So I can definitely recommend it. The big advantage with that is you can put whatever camera you want inside with whatever lens you want inside, as long as you have the adapter. There's something like a screw ring. You screw on your lens and then you put it on the flat glass here. And then it's fixed, and I used it with my 16 to 35 millimeter lens, and it worked perfectly. You have a disadvantage, you have a flat glass, so everything appears a bit closer, like when you have your diving goggles on. It's the same effect, so it's not that good for wide angle, and you won't get the full wide angle, but it still works for over and underwater shots on 16 millimeter full frame. You have no O-rings, so it's pretty easy to clean and has a nice durability. So you have to open the screws here on top, and there's then 2 layers of metal which have a curve inside, and this is what fixes the whole thing on top. And then you just have to watch out that you don't have anything that makes a hole inside. But I usually put it in t-shirts or in a box or something, and then I travel with it, and it most of the times now, and not most of the times, and all of the times, it was safe till today. So luckily also in the future. The big disadvantage with that is that you have air inside. So whenever you want to dive with it, you get like squeezed all together, so you can't move anything anymore. You even can't put your finger right in anymore. It does not work that well. But it's good for snorkeling. It's good for just making surfer pictures or something in the water, and that is a, I would say, cheap solution for underwater photography, and you can't attach any flashes or something. That is also a disadvantage. But it was the first thing I started with. Still like it and still use it when I don't want to take a big housing with me and I'm small on weight or something. I take this one with me because you can attach it just on your back or something, just have it with you. The next thing I want to show you is this housing here, and I'm quite amazed by it because it is actually a China Amazon housing, and I was thinking, why is there not a small housing like from a GoPro but for a bigger camera? It must be possible. There's so much stuff out there and you have 3D printers and all this stuff. Why can't they make a housing just for, let's say, my A6000 or my A7R, which is actually pretty small for a full frame camera with a small lens on it? And I looked on Amazon and there is actually something. And I bought it, I tested it in Egypt, and it works. I saw it the first time in Canada when I was snorkeling with beluga whales for the tourism destination there. And I saw the cameraman filming with it, and I asked him if it's cool, and he said yes, and then I tried it in Egypt. And what should I say? It works pretty cool. I was with that thing maybe 8 times on 18 meters, and it works. I attached a grab to it, and I had LED light on top, no flash, so that was the first thing. Maybe you can attach some flashes on the front, I don't know, I haven't tested it. I used it with a LED light and it worked. It's not the best thing, but you can get a bit of light and you can put your small camera like a A6000, which this case is made for, inside with a normal kit lens, and it works. So that's pretty cool, and everything fits, every button works. So it costs something like 300 euro or something, 300 to 400, almost like this one. And the disadvantage with that is that you can only use one camera. So different camera, different housing, different lens, different housing, or even with that, you don't have a port inside here, so you can't change it. And you also have a flat glass on front, so for wide angle, it's not the best. You get a zoom effect underwater. But it works, it's cool, and I tested it, and I can say it's okay, you can use it. And then also a big disadvantage is, I would say that this thing is more sensitive than this bag. Because this is made of plastic and of solid plastic. When this falls down, you get a crack or something, or even when you carry it in the plane or something, and it hits something hard, it might crack. And when you don't see the crack, just a small crack is enough. When you don't see it and you get the pressure underwater, this will just blow up. So I would say this is better for traveling than this one. But this is better for diving, so I would choose this over this when it comes to diving. But just for snorkeling, this is totally okay. Last year in November and December, I was for 2 months in Mauritius, and I did some work there, and I did as well some vacation, and I knew that I was there for 2 months, so a lot of time, and Indian Ocean, a lot of diving, and that's what I actually did. So I bought myself a bigger housing, and I chose this one from Ikelite, and it is for the Sony A7R2, A7S2 or A7 II. So you can put 3 different cameras because they have the same body inside, but different camera would not work. So this is already a big disadvantage, like with this as well. A big housing like this, and this is made of plastic, you can get some of aluminium or made of other materials, is quite expensive. This alone costs 2,000 euro. Then you have the dome port. It is this thing. Now there's protection on it, but this is actually the glass comes on top. So it's already like this big, quite a big thing. And then when you want to take photos underwater, you need handlebars. So on the left and on the right are some handlebars, and you need some arms, and then you need some flashes. But that is the big thing, and I wanted to test it in Mauritius. So all in all, it cost something about 3,000 euro. Without the flashes I rented, and the flashes itself is 1,000 per flash. So it's 5,000 just with the whole thing to get underwater without even a camera. And I had my Sony a7R II in it, so add an extra 3,000 euro, and I had the 16 to 35 millimeter 4.0 lens in it, so add another 1,500 euro or something, so almost 10,000 euro in this thing underwater. I have my advanced diver, so in Mauritius I did it till 34 meters or something, photographing on some wrecks, and this thing works pretty cool. It is very good, but it is not amazing. So how is it to photograph with such a housing underwater? It's quite an experience. It's not easy underwater. You need a good buoyancy underwater, but it will work if you just give it a try for some times. And I'm satisfied with that, but I'm not amazed by this housing, and I tell you why. Everything worked cool, and I did some great photos underwater, but I had some issues. First issue was the fitting. So this housing cost something about 2,000, 3,000 euro. This housing cost 300 euro, 400 euro. My A6000 for this housing fits perfect. In this housing, which is made for the A7R II, it was not fitting great. So I was put my camera inside, and I had some small gap under the camera. So the camera was shaking a bit in the housing, and then the record button was not working anymore on the back. So I had to switch the record button, and as well had to put some plastic under my camera, like you do it from a shaking table or something, that the camera was not shaking in the housing. Then I had some issues with the flash. All the times, or in most of the times, one flash was not firing. It all started great. I tested it on the surface. Everything was full. Battery was full. I tested it on the surface, did some test shots, everything worked, I was in the water, everything worked, and then the first nice thing appears, like a great fish or something, and I took one flash and I waited. I don't do it for the first time, I waited, but only one flash was flashing then, and the other flash did not work anymore. I don't know till the day today what the problem was. I just rented them, so I don't know if the flash was broken or something, I don't know, but it worked. Then the other day it worked again. Something like this. And I read in the internet, I googled it, and I was not the first person who had that issue with that. Another thing that I did not like, but I think it's common to that housings, but I want somebody to invent a better version, something like this. When I want to change my SD card or my battery, which is most of the times after one dive, when you have a Sony camera and you do some filming and stuff, I need to put everything apart. So I have to open the back, I have to open the front, the dome pod has to take off. I have to screw out my lens, then I have to put backwards out my camera, then I have to put the small plastic things under the camera off as well. Then I have to put my lens back on again. I have to clean everything up, that there's no moisture inside. Then I can change my battery. And then when I want to put the camera inside for the second dive, I have to do the same stuff again, over and over, day by day. After the 10th dive or something, it is okay. You get used to it, but it's still annoying. So please invite something better. Yeah, but apart from that, I'm quite amazed by it. I was, as I already mentioned, on 34 meters or something. I did maybe 20 dives with that, I don't know. And I did some great images. And it's amazing when you're underwater with that big flashes and you just do it like this, and on the surface it weighs something like 10 or 15 kilo or something, so quite heavy. Somebody has to give it in the water all the time and take it back, and you have to look carefully that they don't hit it somewhere or that they don't put it on something where it falls down. But it's amazing. Underwater you have no weight anymore. It's perfectly underwater. It's like just floating. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun with that, but this is a pro version. Oh, and another thing that did not work was the zoom ring. So the shittiest invention I've ever seen for 3,000, 2,000 whatever euro housing is that invention. So you put that, and seriously, that is the solution you get when you buy that housing. You have that plastic thing and you have to attach it on your lens, and then you have those small shitty foam things and that holds the lens, and you can be sure that it won't hold the lens. And I tried different things, some day it worked, the other day not, so I did not zoom underwater anymore. Another thing that I didn't mention yet is why you need the light. Most people don't know, when you are underwater, just after a few meters, you won't have red as a color anymore, and then you don't have green anymore, so it's just blue. That's why most of the pictures look blue underwater, especially when you use a GoPro. So what you can do is add light, and you can add the light just with some LED lights, that works, but something has to be very close and it does not work that good in all scenarios. Or you need flashes, and flashes are expensive for underwater, and you need a special housing to fit the flashes as well. There are cheaper solutions, I think, so all-inclusive solutions I would call them, from different brands, but I did not try them yet. But with this, as I mentioned, you need the handlebars, you need the arms, and then you need the flashes. And I used the dome port. Didn't mention that as well, because I shoot wide angles, so on 60mm full frame, and you have a dome port, so it's curved, not flat, that you don't have the zoom effect, so that you have the full wide angle and you can do nice over and underwater shots as well. So I'm on wide angle, I add the light, and without a flash, everything is just blue. When you're on 30 meters or 18 meters or even on 10 meters, everything is just blue. But when you add the light, you get nice colors. You get like pink corals or green corals, or you get nice colorful fishes that you don't see even with your eyes, that they have nice colors, but you can see it then when the flash comes or when the light comes, and you can see it in the picture. So it's a whole different image quality, a whole different look of pictures when you shoot with a big housing with flashes or LED lights on than you just have when shooting without flashes. And when you now think, or what you think about is, why is this turtle not blue? It's because it's right beneath the surface. You can see maybe here on top the surface. So it was not deep. It was maybe on 1 meter or 2 meters of depth in the water. That's why the turtle has all the colors still on it. But when it would be deeper, it would just be a blue turtle. So what I would recommend you is, when you just want to start, this I totally can recommend. For snorkeling or just being in the water, for kayaking, for going out on a trip, you just want to protect your camera, this is totally cool. It's a mess to handle, that's for sure, but it works. And this one here is cool as well. I can recommend it as well for diving, for snorkeling, but I would not take it in a canoe or something, because when it hits the bottom, it might crack. So this is more useful in most of the scenarios, I would say, but this is not bad as well. And you can change your cameras here. So when you buy yourself a new camera, new lens, you can use the same thing. When you want to change the camera here, you can't. And this baby is more for the ambitious photographer underwater, I would say, because it's quite expensive. You need a lot of practice with it. So I practice maybe 5 dives just with the housing without flashes, and then I put the flashes on, and then I started to use just 1 flash. Then I tested with 2 flashes in different angles with different animals and all the stuff. But it's quite fun, and when you get used to it, it's the ultimate underwater photography thing, I would say. Without flashes, it's a whole different level, and with flashes, it's a lot more fun, I would say. What is about you? Do you do underwater photography? Have you tried it already? Maybe you are afraid of it, just write it in the comments below if you have any questions. As well, share the video with somebody who's interested in photography, especially maybe in underwater photography. Hit thumbs up and we see us next time. Never forget, sag mal Einstellung, Digga, und haut da rein. Oh, and when you want to learn Adobe Lightroom the easy and fun way and start edit your photos, check out my full video course at learnfromben.com.